That is the catless version. If you wanted to have a catalytic converter in your BHR mid-pipe, that's going to run you about $575. So those are your two options that you have with getting the mid-pipe. Both will come with all the accessories and shipping included. So $450 or $575.
And so here's the.
So open up
I
the
wanna
box,
fast forward.
and pretty much all you're gonna see is
So
the stock
for the
exhaust
guys
header. If you have the regular one on there, or you can bolt it up to a aftermarket
right
one.
up to the header, and let's see if I can get it in here.
Going on down,
This.
this is your resignator, and then this is the other side.
So does anybody know what a resignator is, Bob?
No.
You know those guys that come down your street and they shift and you hear "Rrrr," and it like drives you crazy and you want to scream? That's what this is. So we're at this house and Shannon pulls in the driveway. I'm like, what in the world was that
I
noise?
think we heard it.
Yeah, you guys heard it. They live on the other side of the block. And I said, please tell me that was your friend's car that just pulled in the driveway. He's like, no, I put a new exhaust on. And the funny thing is, so he does this nice professional video, which by the way, had like 6,000 views on it. He got some views. And then his dad, he didn't add this in the story, but his dad said, Shannon, you got 3 days to take that off, or you're gonna find a new parking place for your car. So he spent all this money, what,
I remember
$400?
that.
And he had to take the whole thing off because it was like, no way I'm gonna have him driving down the street.
Is that when he moved to my house?
No. But it's just, it's kind of, hey, wait till you, if you get to, I won't play it here because there's no sound or anything, but Jimmy's in the video and Delon's in the video. So this is the same guy, and you guys, actually, maybe not everybody knows this, but he didn't know how to change spark plugs when he bought his car. So the only thing I can take credit for is showing him how to change spark plugs. After that, he starts watching, he buys an RX-8, which is a rotary engine.
Yeah.
Not a regular engine, it's not easy, not easy. He starts watching videos, just starts learning. And Jimmy, you tell it, what you told me earlier about the club.
Yeah, it seemed like he just picked it up like that. And he invited me. He's like, hey, you want to help me rebuild my engine? And I go, I know nothing about cars, like, absolutely nothing. And he's like, I'll talk you through it. Like, just come on and help me out. And I'm like, sure. So he like step by step told me exactly what we were doing. And I'm like, okay. And I just couldn't believe that 19, 20-year-old kid knew how to do this. He picked it up that quickly, you know, and I don't know if a lot of it was just him figuring stuff out or if it was all from the YouTube, you know, but he did it in such a fast time too. It took us like 3 days.
Yeah, this is the time lapse of it.
Take it out and put it back.
Cool.
Tell him what you said about when he went to help the guys from the RX-8 group and how much he knew versus them.
Yeah, so he found this group, this RX-8 group through Facebook, and all these people were all RX-8. I don't know if they were experts or what, you know, maybe claimed to be or whatever.
Claimed to be.
But it was always Shannon. They were always asking Shannon how, like, if they could have him work on his car, fix this, do this to it, do this
Is this
test.
in your garage?
This is our garage
Yeah, this
here.
is the
Yeah.
garage right
So
here.
cool.
We bought a block and tackle to be able to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm a nice dad. We bought this, it's like $70 for that crane noise.
Holy cow.
But I had to do this, you know, by myself. My grandfather helped me when I mean, it's so funny, the things that he did, they paralleled my life
Really?
without knowing it. Like,
Wow.
Yeah.
he didn't know that I bought a car and changed the engine 3 times.
Mhm.
He didn't know that I knew nothing about automotives until I made a friend that helped me. Like,
So question, was there a reason why you need to rebuild?
apparently RX-8s, rotary engines, after 60,000 miles, the seals go. And if you don't replace them, it constantly dies in cold weather and all these problems. So
There's Jimmy.
there's Jimmy
There's Jimmy
Wow.
right there.
and Delon.
Is that just hanging from a wood beam?
This is Shannon right here.
No, it's a steel beam.
Oh, okay. You just happen to have
It's
one
like
in your
vultures
garage.
Yeah.
picking,
Now I know why you bought the house.
Yeah,
Yeah, just later.
That is so cool.
but and look at this. I don't know why I'm in there with my
But there
business.
had to be screws left over. There always
That's
is.
it.
The basement.
There's always screws left.
So these nice folding 6-foot tables that we have, he took all 3 of them and he lined them in the basement. He took everything apart in the engine, labeled it and put it on all these tables. I come downstairs one day and Jimmy knows this,
Yeah.
like, he did everything when I wasn't home. So I come home, I walk downstairs and I see all this stuff, yeah. So Mom, you can probably attest how many times you come home and find grease all over the laundry room.
The garage, the driveway. You had all this. things,
You know,
electrical hookups,
You learn from doing,
Yeah.
and you make a lot of mistakes and get a lot of
Yeah.
things dirty in the process.
Yeah.
And try to not tell your parents about it.
Good luck.
But I am so proud of Shannon. So people like Paula and Jackie, you guys know that I started my own bunk company. I don't know what I was doing, but you guys were a big inspiration. Jackie was my first customer. I went and worked for AMC for a few years. It didn't work out real well, but then I started my own another business in 2010, and Shannon was 15, I guess, 14 at the time. And he was like looking over my shoulder at everything I did. And he was listening and he was, giving me advice. But the neat thing is that after about 4 years, we moved out here, got an office down the street, and he would come in and he would help me. Like he was going to Harper and he had some odd jobs. He worked at Best Buy and a few other places.
Yeah. That was probably around the time this video was made.
Was it?
Probably, I would.
Yeah,
This
I
was
think
around
so.
when he was going to Harvard, so.
But what blows my mind is that he would come into the office and he would do testing on, we did mobile apps, and he'd do testing on the apps. And then I got to the point where I had enough business. I hired more associates like Paula, and they came. You're helping out with customer service. And Shannon did not want to do customer service, but what he would do is when I'd hire somebody new, he'd train them. I don't think you ever got to work with them at West Web Strategy, but at AAG, Shannon would train all the new people. He would show them the apps. We did these test plans and wrote all the instructions, and he would do it. And he'd show them how to do it. He worked for me for probably 6 years. And he did graphics, even though he wasn't super graphical like his sister, he wasn't an artist. He knew how to run the software. So all the apps that we did, and I should have brought some of them up, but he did all the icons like resizing, and Apple has this annoying habit. You have to have 3 sizes of every single image that you upload to their website. It's a big hassle. And so Shannon would be like my production man. And he was there, and it was like, it's the coolest memory for me to know that I got to, work with my son. Yeah, so proud.
Yeah.
Just really proud of him because as you saw in the RX-8, the previous video, and he did some other stuff about Facebook, how to stop Facebook from using your data. He moved from this shy kid that wouldn't talk on video to talking, and he's got, a million views on his YouTube channel. He would explain things. There's still people viewing his videos, even though they're kind of old and out of date. He abandoned the channel a while ago, but it's cool to, have that memory that I got to work with him in the garage on projects. And actually, I'll take a pause here while I pick up the other video. And I want to show you the video about this window. Some of you guys have seen the kitchen and you knew what this house looked like before, but Shannon had a big part to do with that too. Let me see if I can
Dan,
find
you
it.
did an amazing job too.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Thank you. So I tried to run this, but it keeps, the show isn't working. Let me bring it up here. So I said to Shannon one day, just to show you that he knew technology, he knew engines and construction. Like he would go and he bought some tools, and I'm like, hey Shannon, I could use some help with the wall project, putting in a window. And I'm like, he's like, well, Friday is my light day. I can come over after work on Friday. So he comes over, it's probably like 4 o'clock because you'll see the darkness in a minute. And we go over to Home Depot where he used to work. We rented a saw, 12-inch circular concrete saw. I don't know why I needed a 12-inch. I think I could have probably got a smaller one, but we go and rent the thing and we're harassing each other all the way over there and all the way back. And then we get out here and you'll see us here. Let's see if I can play it. This is a time lapse. And this saw is massive. And I couldn't hold it up because I had to hold it over my head. And so you'll see the two of us getting in there together. And of course, he's making fun of me. He's like, what's the matter? You're too old. You can't hold it up anymore. It's guys humor. So this is Shannon here on the left.
Who's filming?
And so in true Shannon nature, whenever he did anything, he always set a time lapse up. We always filmed it. So we just put a tripod out and put the camera on. It's just, it's interesting that way his brain worked because he taught me how to do video. He taught me time lapse. He taught me how to edit videos. I didn't teach him this. He taught me this. And yet he also would do construction and the automotives. And then we started blowing fuses when I had a light. And he had a nice hammer drill, a battery powered hammer drill, which I still have my tools from the 1920s. So that's Shannon up here.
Looks like you're breaking into something.
We're gonna get this done tonight.
So
Is this really your house?
this is this window.
No, I'm teasing.
Yeah.
Breaking in.
Yeah. So he liked this part. Is that Jordyn?
This is Greg.
Hey, Greg, can you see the video I'm sharing?
I see a ladder and a platform. Start my camera. Not that you really want to see my face, but
Yeah. I don't think so the crowd here can't see you, but that's probably okay. So this is
yeah,
Greg.
you don't want to see my fuzzy beard.
Can you see them?
Oh, there. I don't. I see the funky little zoom icon for a person,
Yeah.
and I see you with a ladder and a scaffold.
Oh,
That's
but
it.
you don't see the people here.
No, no.
Bummer. Well, we've got about 30 of our closest friends here. So
Oh my! Wow.
do you have time to listen on the presentation?
I do. They're gonna start supper. I don't know sometime, but I can listen for a while and ignore them.
Okay. I'm showing the video of Shannon helping me build the wall,
Oh, okay. All right.
installing the window. I don't think so. Well, I can. Well, he's not gonna be talking. It's okay. He's gonna share in a few minutes. We're gonna ask Greg to do a story. So I'll finish this one. So this is Shannon on the ladder. And we got it done. Let's see if there's one.
One more brick in the wall. You
More
gonna play
brick.
that?
There we go. Okay. So anyway, I was sharing, I hope you can hear me, Greg. I was just sharing how Shannon kind of amazed me because he could do, construction, he could do automotives, and then he took a video on it and then he figured a way to make money. When you get 1 million views on YouTube, actually 10,000, they start paying you when people view your videos. Ads on. Yeah. So anyway, I forgot now. I interrupted myself. Where was I going with this? Oh.
You're gonna tell a story.
So I am telling a story. It's just rambling. Sorry. It was really cool to be able to work with him and to learn. Like I learned so much from him. I firmly believe that God gives us kids to change us, not necessarily to change them and to teach them anything. I think they're here to teach us. I think they're God's messengers, and we have a responsibility to raise them the best we can. But I think they turn out to be who who God built them to be. And then they change us. And the question is, do we allow them to change us? Do we allow them to slow down so that we can learn from them? Like I learned so much from Shannon, and I can't believe I'm saying these things without crying. It's probably the first time in a year that I'm not crying saying this, but Shannon taught me, so much about technology, but he also taught me about friendships, and I'm grateful that Jimmy's here. Some of his other friends, Nick was going to be here. He got sick and a few others, but Delon told me that, so Delon is from Mexico and third grade at And Delon told me at the wake, he said, Shannon, someone that would talk to me. He saw that I was, I didn't speak very good English and didn't have any friends, but Shannon came over and made friends with me. And they're friends to this day. Delon was the one in the video with the Mustang.
Yep.
And Delon's a little bit of a shy guy, would you say?
Definitely, yeah.
But Shannon befriended him. Shannon was
Yeah.
shy, but like he sought out these other kids that were shy and he just befriended them. And I think a lot of his other friends from the club and so it's just, he taught me that, he was listening. All those times that we were doing stuff together and projects, like he was listening. I didn't know it, and it took me, even like through his death to meet his friends and to hear like some of the stories of him on the boat. Were you on the pontoon boat?
I was not. No, I heard about that. I wish I could have been there.
That was an interesting story. I didn't know my son liked beer so much.
Well, he didn't. That was just his one time.
Yeah, I did.
Right, exactly. Yeah, just the one.
But I'm kind of all over the place. I'm going on. I wrote down an order. So if anybody else has a story that they would like to share, I would absolutely.
I'd go because I don't know exactly when I'm going to be told by my wife to come eat.
Okay.
Greg Hoppel, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, worked with Dan back in the old Rockwell days. And so let's see, first memory of Shannon and Jordyn was an Easter dinner we had at my house. And at the time I was a bachelor. And so like those two were like playing downstairs in the basement because I'm a cheap bachelor. I didn't like heat anything. Like, Dad, that basement's like really cold. But he was a fun kid. And when you went to Chicago, I didn't see him very much, but I did go there a few times and he was very quiet, but he's nice and we'd hang out. And I always remember his Wankel rotary engine car. He loved that thing. And we loved talking about it because we could say the word Wankel. And, and he, even took me around, drove me around a block and he showed me all the innards of it. And I that grin on his face when there was something that you either say something funny. I wouldn't necessarily see him laugh, but just this huge grin come over his face. And that was really awesome. And I will have to say personally for me, last year, probably about this time, me and my own middle son were like at loggerheads, really, really bad loggerheads, just kind of hated each other. And I'll have to say that what happened with Shannon kind of drove me like, I got to change my attitude. And I changed my life and my actions towards my son. And though he rejected that change for quite some time, sometime in February, pastor's sermon at the beginning of Lent, talking about love and forgiveness, he came to me and said, Dad, it doesn't make sense for me to hold a grudge against you forever, especially when I've done some stuff. And we made up. And now we're on this family vacation and he's laughing with me and smiling and joking. And it's like having my kid back. And I mean, it maybe wasn't wholly in part to Shannon, but I have to say that whole horrible thing there drove me. It's like, I don't want to lose my kid. He's going to go off in another month to the Air Force. And, may come back fine, but I don't know. So I have to thank Shannon that he told me to get off my duff and change. And I appreciate that.
Thank you for saying that, Craig.
Yeah.
I think,
Yes.
thank you, Greg. I do think that something this horrible, God doesn't let it go. Do you think God's working in everybody's lives, and hopefully everyone's lives here. Maybe some small thing you take home from this. But that kind of pain, you know, it touched Greg's heart. And I know he's working in my heart. I know he's working in Maggie's heart, and my family, and his friends. No, I won't go to the painful place right now. But God uses that. God uses that pain because God is love. God gave us, you can't love without that love coming from God. And, you know, this situation just, it was a denial of that love. You know, he had a weak moment. And, but the love doesn't die. That's the thing.
Right.
Me and my grief groups, I've been going a lot of therapy, a lot of grief groups, is instead of thinking of him as over, his life is, you know, his life is just beginning with God. I firmly believe that he's with our Heavenly Father. But the love lives on. Like, my love for him doesn't stop just because he's gone or because Greg's son is going to be away now in the Air Force. Like, that love continues. And we do stuff like this, like tell stories, or maybe slow down and embrace our kids or the neighbor's kid, or, you know, someone. That love penetrates and it transforms people. So I'm super grateful for that love. Thank you, Greg, for that story. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, Sue, do you want to tell?
The night of Shannon's death, I went to sleep early, and my boyfriend Bruce happened to be on his phone, and he was listening to a song called "I Can Only Imagine." And when that song was over, Maggie called and told Bruce the news. Well, he chose not to wake me up, but I guess was okay. You know, but the next morning, I found out, and we all got ready and went over to my mom's house because she didn't know what was happening yet. And so we were there, and we got in the driveway, and everybody was in this massive hug. And I never heard my brother cry like he did that day when he was trying to tell my mom what happened. But we went in the house, and we're all trying to get through it, and we're talking. And so I start playing the song for my mom, "I Can Only Imagine," because I want her to hear what it sounds like. And I had been crying and continued to cry, and I was listening to the song, and I closed my eyes, and the tears were just coming. And then all of a sudden, I got a vision. And it was Jesus with his hands out like this. And Shannon, maybe 10 years old, all in white, was looking up with that smirk on his face at Jesus. And I remember being surprised because I thought, well, Jesus is going to be in all white. I mean, that's just how it should be, right? But it wasn't. Shannon was in white with a little, you know, a little tie robe. But he was smirking. And to this day, I think of that vision every single day. And I thank Jesus for giving me that. I don't understand why he didn't give it to Dan. But we're very close, and I guess it makes sense. He wanted me to tell him that he's in heaven. So we had the song, was sung at the funeral. It's a beautiful song. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph in case you're not familiar. It's, "I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine, surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus, or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence, or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. So I just happened to find this and the words to it, and I thought, what a perfect thing for you to have.
There's more, because my sister is a gift giver.
The day Shannon died, he took a video and Dan showed me, and it was about a hummingbird, because he used to get hummingbirds in his yard. And it was hummingbird hovering, 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 and then it was just gone. You didn't see it fly away. It was just gone. And it makes me think of Shannon, who was here and then he was gone. But anyway, so for us, hummingbirds are Shannon. And so I just have a few things. Hopefully this isn't, oh, it's a little hummingbird wind chime. I hate wind chimes, but you can.
I'll give you one.
But Dan will love it.
You can cut off the bells if you want.
It's beautiful.
And just another fun stringy one.
Yeah, because that's his goofy days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's it. There you go.
So he'll live on.
That's awesome. She's giving me, you can't see him, but I've got a hummingbird.
Got a nightlight. So grief never ends, but it changes. It's a passage, not a place to stay. Grief is not a sign of weakness, not a lack of faith. It is the price of love. And maybe Rich can interject some levity.
Yeah, I was gonna say, on a lighter note, many moons ago, when I was babysitting Jordyn and Shannon, what an experience, by the way, especially after a night of going out with my friends, partying days back then. So I'm like, sure, I'll babysit, no problem. I love my niece and nephew. Sure, I'll babysit. So I didn't know it was going to be quite the experience it turned out to be.
Rich, move over.
But Mom, you want me to jump up and down? Jump up and down.
Mama
Can you
wants
see me, man? Hello. J number 2. So anyways, I didn't realize it was going to be quite the experience it turned out to be. So I'm babysitting, wake up in the morning, hanging out with them. All of a sudden, I'm in the other room on the phone or whatever. And I didn't realize they were gone. I get a call from Dan. Yeah, big oops, right? I get a call from Dan. And I hadn't babysat much, by the way, prior to this. Okay, I know, right? It blows everyone's mind, I'm sure. So Dan's like, can I talk to Shannon and Jordyn? I'm like, well, you probably don't want to talk to them right now. He's like, what do you mean I don't want to talk to them right now? They're my kids. I want to talk to them. Can you just put them on the phone? I'm like, well, they're kind of in the other room. What do you mean they're in the other room? Go get them. Put them on the phone. I'm like, then I had to come clean. I'm like, well, actually, I think they might be. I looked out the window. I'm like, there was a library across the street and there was a lake, and they had took it upon amongst themselves to walk across the street, run across the street in their PJs, by the way. And they're running around the lake, and I'm watching them. I'm like, oh, and I'm on the phone with Dan. I'm like, uh-oh. Think quick, right? I'm like, well, so I had to come clean. I'm like, actually, I think they're across the street. He's like, what do you mean you think they're across the street? I'm like, well, I I believe they are. Give me a minute, I'll go round them up. So I run over there and one's on the one side, one's on the other side. They made me chase them. They're in their PJs, running around. And Shannon had that smirk on his face the whole time. And Jordyn's like, come over here. And then Shannon, come over here, okay. And that smirk the entire time. So I'm like, how am I gonna get them to come back? They just wouldn't listen. They would not listen at all. So I'm like, I have to get them to come back. What do I do? So I'm thinking quick. I'm like, oh, I know what to say. Your dad said he's gonna be really mad at you and he's gonna punish you if you don't come back right now. All of a sudden, they come back. I'm like, Dan, you want to talk to your kids, right? There you go. And then they came on the phone, right? But they came back. So
they like Uncle Rich.
They did.
Lots of candy.
And I was known as CUR, C-U-R, the acronym C-U-R, which stood for Crazy Uncle Rich. Jordyn still calls me that. But another time, it was really nice because I took him out shortly after his 21st birthday. Figured I'm gonna take him out for a drink, right? Show him a good time, whatever. Took him to a bar, see a band and whatnot. And he's like, no, I only want Coors Light. I'm like, no, get a mixed drink. You're 21. Come on, get at least get one. So he took one, he drank one. But then he really opened up. I mean, we bonded more than like we had ever bonded in our lives. And it just, the things he shared with me, it was just really an experience. And sorry. Love him, miss him.
Rich, so Shannon being the entertainer himself, he liked this guy a lot. He's not like our Grandpa Joe, and he always thought Rich was so funny. He really looked up to you. And every time we had a party, if I wanted to know where my son was, I just looked for Rich or Mike.
Right.
My other brother. And he was always talking to them because he was quieter. He talked to anybody that would talk to him, but he wouldn't initiate. He'd go in the corner and he'd hang out with Rich and Mike. And these guys always pushed past, that quiet awkwardness that a lot of people wouldn't push past, so they could connect with him. And it was so nice because he had these uncles that just, always were there and could talk to them or relate to them, and an aunt, wherever aunts who went. Just it's really touching to me because it does take a village to raise your kids. To know that you've got sister and brothers that will love your children like you do, and you can trust them sort of when you're babysitting. Maybe not.
Say I tried. I didn't know they were gonna run off.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate it. Do you have another story? Did you get the?
What was the other one I shared with you? I'm gonna take up all the time of everyone's time, but was there one other one I shared?
It'll come to me. It's not coming to me right now. It'll come. You come back. You can tell it again.
Well, I'll let everyone else.
All right. Well, does anybody else have anything they wanted to share?
I'll just tag on to what Rich kind of said. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rich's girlfriend. I'm Donnie. It's not really a story. It's just that kind of in what you were related to what you were saying. When I first started dating Rich the first few years, Rich would tease me, and know that's shocking for you guys to know that Rich would tease somebody, and he'd call me Beat Bird. He's like, "What do you do, Beat Bird? Cut out Beat Bird." In terms of endearment, And but Shannon was a teenager at the time.
Yeah.
How old was he? Like
17.
not even 16, 17. And I just remember after seeing him a few times, and he'd be around Rich calling me Beat Bird. He came up to me one time at an event and he's like, "How's it going, Beat Bird?" And I'm like, "Oh." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "So you like me?" So he likes me. And then after that, he would just tease me, and we got along great. And I just thought, for a teenage boy to start joking around with you, I thought, right? You're a teenage boy. I just took that as a huge compliment. And I just, after that, we were kind of in, and we got along, and it was great.
Right. And then every time he saw you after, hey, beat this, hey, beat that.
Oh, yeah, then it just got worse, right? Then he just even more, so. That
Terms
was
of
nice.
endearment, you know,
Miss him, I miss it. Sounds like.
yeah.
I'll let someone else
Thanks,
share.
Bonnie.
Sure,
Thank you,
yeah.
Bonnie.
Thanks.
You're gonna tell us?
I'll tell you.
The floor is yours. With the meatloaf?
Yeah, so, but who was the friend?
Might have been Jimmy.
It might have been, I don't think it was Jimmy, but anyway, Shannon got into cooking. You know, he, in high school, he took home ec. I remember coming over to your house and he would cook dinner sometimes, he would bake sometimes. So when we bought this house and he started living with us, we convinced him to cook one night a week, right? You know, share the load. And he was hanging out with one of his friends. I don't think it was Jimmy, but he decided that he was going to cook meatloaf for dinner. But they kind of had like this late start. You know, they were either probably working on the car, or upstairs playing video games. I don't know what it was, but he and his friend decided to make meatloaf. And you know how long meatloaf takes, right? It takes like an hour to cook. So Dan and I are hungry, and they had a late start. So we're like, okay, we'll go for a walk. And we'll waste some time while they're cooking the meatloaf. So we come back from the walk and we're starving. You know, it is, I don't know what time it is, but we're starving. And we come into the kitchen and we notice that they had already eaten their dinner. And we look at the loaf pan and they left us, I'm not kidding you, they left us this much out of the loaf pan. It was like this big and they left us this much. And Dan calls him down there upstairs and he kind of comes down. He's like, what are you thinking? And you know, Shannon, and he would just be like, you know, like give this like shrug, like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what I did. I don't know. So I always think of that when we have meatloaf.
And you make extra?
Yeah, I make extra. Yeah. So that wasn't you, Jimmy, right?
No, that was
Good,
not.
'cause
me.
I would-
That
I
would have
would-
been the one.
I would
I
have
would
said
have
something.
remembered that.
Hungry boys. Okay, yeah.
I'll tell one more cooking story real quick.
Okay.
Another time we asked Shannon to cook. Andy was working on his RX-8. Big mistake to combine those two things. Because we went out for a bike ride, I think, you know, hey, we got the night off, Shannon's cooking. We come back and like, Shannon, how's the cooking going? It's like, it's good, it's in the house. And as I approach the front
So we're
door,
outside.
we're outside. As I approach the front door, I noticed there's all this smoke. I'm like, open the door, and literally, I'm not exaggerating, I exaggerate a lot, but not this time. From the ceiling down to about here was smoke.
Oh my God.
I come in and the pan is almost non-existent. It's just this, it looks like, you know, those little snakes used to light up.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what the pan looked like, except it was 8 inches wide, just billowing smoke out. So whatever it was that he was cooking had long been overcooked, and there was no water left, and it was just on fire, just burning. So I go over, I turn it off, I put it outside, and the pan was ruined. The house was smelled like smoke. And like Maggie said, the same reaction. Shannon was just kind of like,
Not my problem.
yeah. But so what was interesting, and Leslie's here, come up, Leslie. So she can attest, and I wish Jordyn was here because she would add, when he got his own house, he bought the best pots and pans, and he bought the best dishes, and he bought silverware that matched. He said to me one day, oh, Tupperware. He's like, Dad, when I get my own house, I'm gonna have Tupperware that matches. So, you know, the burnt pan, and I'm sure you've got stories of him ruining things by you, but he just, you know, it's funny to go through these things.
He did not ruin things for me.
Oh my
He
gosh.
was not allowed. I would step him through cooking. This is how he got to cook. Because I used to work in Woodfield and we lived in Park Ridge. And I'd get off of work and I'd call him and say, I'm on the way home. You know, what do you want for dinner? And different things. And I'd be like, okay, you're going to make it. And he'd like grumble and bitch. And I don't want to make it. I'm like, well, do you want to wait for over an hour for me to get home and cook it? No. So I would step him through meatloaf, beef stroganoff, all these things. So he was never working on a car at my house.
Yeah.
He had a garage, and he didn't have a car yet. Then I'm sure he would have burned things.
He loved cooking class in 7th grade, and he just, another thing, he kind of just took on his own. And
Yeah, Jordyn doesn't cook. Shannon
Jordan,
knows to cook.
she's starting to cook a little bit, but yeah, Shannon, I mean, just think of the things that he was into. Automotives, computers, video, cooking.
Well, he wanted to be a pilot.
Wanted to be a pilot. There's a couple of, you'll see as this rotates through, there's a couple pictures of the one time he took a flying lesson. Remember when he used to call himself Pilot Pie?
Yes, that was his email in 8th grade. I remember that. I remember that. Pilot Pie.
Pilot Pie, remember that?
Yep.
Petrosky.
Oh, I don't think I saw that email.
He
I
used
know
that
he was
email.
Pi, and I was like, why are you ashamed of your name?
Yeah,
Calling yourself Pi all the time instead of Shannon.
Do a story.
I probably have a couple. Well, I'm gonna tell an inappropriate story of a 5-year-old Shannon. We used to take each of the kids out on individual mommy, daughter, mommy, daughter. Well,
I think Jordyn, I think she's on.
Mommy, daughter, son, mom, whatever. So one time I had him, we were going down to Navy Pier to go to the haunting on Navy Pier or what have you, just me and him. And mind you, this child was very small. So he didn't shoot up till high school. And we're going through the turnstile to get onto the L, and you're just supposed to walk through with little kids, and it just sticks there and stops us, and this little voice just goes, yes, I was just like, my head snapped down, his tiny little head snapped up, and I was like, what did you say? And he just stared at me and wouldn't repeat it. Never swore in front of me again. But he called his sister the B word when they were like preteens. And when I found out about that, I ripped him a new one too. I was like, you're not calling your sister that. You know, she told me what he'd do. And you always knew if it was the truth because he didn't deny it. He wouldn't admit it, but he wouldn't deny
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah, that was his level of honesty. He wouldn't deny it.
Right. He's not going to outright say, I didn't do that, but he will just sit there and not deny it. And then here's a story for Jordyn. Barb used to babysit, and I didn't know they did these things, Barb, or I would have kicked their little butts for you. Because she's been telling me this story a lot all over the place. Grandma Barb babysat them, and they'd run around the house shouting, "Rah, rah, rah, rah." And they loved raiding your closet, I guess. And they would light perfume on fire. But that's not even as bad, I think, as they got her nightstand out and made a slide down the stairs and shouted, "Barbara, Barbara, Barbara," a bunch of times before throwing the nightstand down their sheet slide. And I was just like, why did no one tell me these things? These children would not have been doing these.
And where was Barbara?
Yeah, that's the question.
Stand at the bottom of the stairs, and he'd get up a little early in the morning, and he'd call upstairs, and Barbara, Barbara.
Well, they took that and ran with it.
So they caught that from him.
Yeah.
But every time Shannon would walk in the door, even at my house, first thing he'd say is, "Barbara," Barbara, scare the hell out of me.
Yeah, the little imp with the blue eyes and the sparkle of mischief in them. And if he weren't so cute, you would have probably kicked them out the door and into a garbage can.
Well, that smirk that everybody's referring to always like kind of worked for him. What people didn't realize is he was nervous. And it was his nervous smile. And when he was in school, the teachers like it just made him warm because had such a cute smile. But I think
Well,
I know you might
sometimes he
think- I
was
think
nervous, but
nervous.
other times he was not.
Just
Because he had a quiet self-confidence about him, at least I think so.
Oh, for sure.
He
Yeah,
didn't
he did.
really care what anybody thought of him. He didn't like probably being called Shannon and mocked and made fun of as a girl, but you know, when he had to stand up for himself, he did. The only time I know that he punched someone was when this kid was kicking his air cast and he would have had a uneven leg. Yeah. When Sandeep, it was at the beginning of high school, sophomore year.
Okay.
Sandeep accidentally broke his ankle, this weird little triangle bone.
Okay.
And he didn't get a regular cast because it was such a weird break and he couldn't ride a bike, he's not allowed to run. And some freshmen wanted to make a name for themselves. So they picked on the small Shannon because he only grown 5 inches and was 5'5" instead of 5 foot. And he kept kicking his cast. And Shannon's like, don't you kick that again. I'm not won't tell you again. And I guess he just told me he took care of it. But years later, I found out he punched the kid and, you know, took care of it.
Which is pretty unusual for
Yeah,
Shannon.
because he is not a violent
I've actually never heard that
person.
story.
Yeah. Well, I just heard he took care of it. I didn't hear that he punched the kid. Because when he was 10, I was always schooling him because Dan didn't always do all the schooling, like opening doors for ladies and this, that, and the other. He didn't want to learn how to do that, but I taught him how to open it so they could walk through even when it's those hard doors. And I sat him down in Sun Pacific because he was a skater boy, even though he didn't skateboard. That was his style. And told him, okay, I just want you to know, I don't want you starting fights, but if somebody ever starts a fight with you, you can finish it and you can engage them. And he just looked up at me, the little sweet soul that he was, and he's like, I don't want to fight anybody, Mom. What are you talking about? So that was him. Walked away from conflict most of the time.
Did anybody else have a story? Otherwise, I'll play a little closing video and we can go back to dessert. Anybody else want to share anything? Anybody in that room? All right.
I'll tell a quick.
All right, Mike's gonna tell him.
He's got a couple more visitors here too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm Dan's other brother, Mike. I know no resemblance at all, so thought I'd explain that. Dan asked for stories, you know, that might help sum up what Shannon was as a person and how he was. And I always thought he was a really helpful person. He liked to help out. As we know with the car stories, always helping to either build a car, take out an engine, put in an engine, whatever it might be. But he was also really good with repairs when it came to like phone stuff, right? And he was like the iPhone expert, wasn't he?
Oh yeah.
And so I remember one time we were just sitting here talking, it was a family event. I mentioned to Shannon, I'm like, hey, you know, my phone isn't working so good. I had an issue with the button on my phone, I think at the time. And he says to me, he's like, well, I'll take a look at that. I said, well, you know, this might be a long repair and we're not gonna be here that long. He's like, oh, no problem, I'll take a look at it. So I'm like, all right, I can do that. So I hand him my phone. He's like, wait, let me get my tools. I'm like, tools? Yeah, like special tools? So he goes to his car, and I guess he always has these at the ready or something. He comes out, I thought he had maybe like a little screwdriver or something. No, it was like a surgeon's kit. When he's about to do surgery, he lays it out.
Yep.
There must have been 20 different tools in there, right? And he gets these out, and he apparently polished them too, because they're all super shiny. I think he took pride in these tools. And got it out, got his tools, took my phone away. I'm like, this is probably going to be a while. So I went, grab a drink from the kitchen. I'm like, you know, I'll sit and kind of watch him work, I guess, right? I come back from getting my drink. I swear it wasn't more than 5 minutes. He had the thing fixed. He hands back, he's like, Uncle Mike, here you go. Button's fixed on the phone. Done, just like that. So I always kind of thought of that as that Shannon being helpful and wanting to actually help out. You know, it's really made an impression. Quick one, but that was Shannon.
All right, some more Shannon's friends are here, but I'm just gonna play this video and then we can go back to having more dessert and then we'll tell some more stories later. But I always like this video. I don't know, to me, it speaks because of listen to the lyrics and notice some of the scenes in there. You'll see a scene, it's very quick, but he's working on an RX-8 and I don't know whose it is, maybe you guys know, but you'll see it. It's not our garage, and he's got the engine hoisted above the car, and he's in the back of it, and he's got his hand on his hip. And he's got this goofy smile. I think he's just being silly, but he's in his element. And so the couple of things I know about it, maybe you guys can shed some light, is it's not his car, so he's helping somebody else. He's in his element because he's got the biggest smile on his face, and he's being silly. So to me, that was, some of the essence of Shannon's character is helping people and being silly, and that was him.
Yeah, he was the class clown.
There is a candle in every soul, some brightly burning, some dark and cold. And there is a spirit who brings a fire, ignites a candle and makes his home. Carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the helpless, confused and torn, and hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle, go light your world. Take your candle, go light your world. Frustrated brother, see how he's tried to light his own candle some other way. See now your sister, she's been robbed and lied to, still holds a candle without a flame. So carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the lonely, the tired and worn, and hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle and go light the world.
I went to Shannon playing trumpet.
Hey, he was good.
Can you talk about, in the spot about what you and I believe it was Rich, Mike, and your dad arranged a weekend away for you guys
Oh,
to come
yeah,
out?
the Stark Rock.
Yeah, I was telling somebody about that yesterday. So I had read somewhere about coming, like a coming of age ceremony for young men. It's popular in the American Indian culture. It's popular in a few other cultures, I think. I don't know. But I read this book, and it inspired me to kind of do something special for Shannon. So I spent probably about 4 months researching it, reading, and I wrote a bunch of stuff, how to treat a lady, how to be a hard worker, just little like 1-page little articles on stuff that I thought would be important. And I prepared this thing, and got a bunch of little gifts. Like I got him a ring, and I got him binoculars and a pocket knife. And then we went to Stark Rock, and I planned this out ahead of time. I went there ahead and I mapped it out, and I told him it was just gonna be a weekend for he and I, but unbeknownst to him, so my brothers, my dad, and Bruce, I think you wrote, and some Phil, where's Phil? I think Phil, you wrote a story. I probably won't remember everybody, so I apologize, but a lot of my guy friends, Andy, you might have written one. I asked them to write letters to Shannon. And so on the weekend away, I gave them the letters, and I just talked to them about some of the things I'd written about. And then the coolest part, I thought, I don't know, Rich, Mike, what you guys thought, but we went for the walk in the woods.
Yeah.
And at one point on the path, and this is a metaphor for life, I said, Shannon, you gotta go on your own. And he said, what do you mean? He said, you have to go to this path on your own. And I said, I'll meet you back at the cabin. And he didn't know that Rich was waiting 100 yards down the path.
Yeah.
But he went down on his own. I think he might have sensed there's somebody got down there. Rich pops out and
Comes
walks
up to
with
me, he's
him.
like, I don't know what we're supposed to do. I'm like, well, Shannon,
You did it.
it's all about life. I'm not gonna tell you what to do. I know, I'm like, I don't know, what do I tell? I'm like, I want to help, but I'm gonna tell him what to do. Let's just talk. He's like, it's cool.
And then I think you did the same thing, and then a little while later, Mike
Yeah.
met him.
Yeah.
And my dad couldn't walk, so my dad was at the end of the path, and they just sat together on a bench for a while. It was just a really nice weekend, and I presented him with a Bible and some other stuff. And when he moved out of the house, he left everything. He didn't take any. He didn't take the Bible. He didn't take I printed it up in a nice little booklet, and I gave him I carved a walking stick for him, and I put his name on it. He didn't take any of it.
He was not sentimental. Every place we
Yeah.
left, he wanted to leave everything behind. And I'd be like, I'm taking these things from Cub Scouts and whatever. You'll appreciate them one day, but he was a minimalist.
What I realized later, that's okay. Like the process of me writing and spending time with him, and that weekend with my brothers, my
Yeah.
dad, like I said earlier, it doesn't, if the love doesn't end, the love was there. And so he didn't take the stuff with him. It didn't, I don't know if it affected him or not, but it affected me. God changed me through my son. And so, yeah, so, take your candle and go light your world. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to Leslie and I and Jordyn. It helps us share the stories and hear what he meant to you. And even if it was just like Bob, and Andy, you guys would come to my house for prayer groups, my prayer group guys. And sometimes it was just Shannon running through the room with his backpack and running out the door. It helps us to keep the spirit alive in us. It's super important. Don't ever be afraid to bring his name up. We love it when people use our son's name. And maybe like Craig, I think Craig might be gone by now, but maybe like Craig, you take a little something with you and impacts your life. So, thank you. Lots of desserts, and I think it's still nice outside. I did get through a little bit, but I'll eat some more.
I guess.
So I don't know if anybody, I had it on Zoom for Jordyn and a friend of mine were out of town. So I put it on Zoom and I shared the link with them. I don't know, see if anybody is there.
Middle school. We met in sixth grade. Yeah.
No, nobody's there, so I'll stop it now.
Nice to meet you.